Welcome to another episode of Sparky Coach Podcast. This is part 2 of lessons learned in business. Part 1, I shared a bit about my story and sort of how I got to be in this position. And we're just going to get into it. I've got 25 lessons, business lessons to sort of give you from my experience. So yeah, go with me on the journey and let's go. So I guess my first lesson, and it's kind of interesting to say, and rereading it back, I was like, do I even share this? Is this like 101? Do people need to hear this? But then flashing back to who I was when I first started my business in the early years, I'm like, yes, people need to hear this. And I think the big thing for me, one of the biggest lessons looking back, was let go. To let go. And when I say let go, I mean let go of insecurity. I remember someone said to me once, like, people don't think about you nearly as much as you think you do. And just let that sink in for a second. Like, people don't think about you nearly as much as you think they do. And I remember starting my business being like, it's going to sound funny to people who don't have it, but having this like fear of success, having like a flat out fear of success. Like, what if and I think that fear of success or that fear of what people think genuinely stopped me from wearing Crow Electrical t-shirts and getting branding on the car and getting a website. Cause I was like, if I don't change my voicemail, if I change my voicemail, people will think I'm taking it seriously. And what if I take it seriously? And what if I fail? Like, this is how in depth I'm thinking about people that don't even have the time to think about me. I'm worried about what they think if I change my voicemail. Like, it's psycho to even talk about. So it's like letting go of insecurity is a big part of the business journey. Letting go of who you're meant to be or where you should be. And it's specifically, you see it in the coaching world when people come in, they're like, oh, I know I've been operating for 5 or 7 years and I should be here. And that shoulda, coulda, woulda, like if I would have done this, if I had done this, if I had have picked up that at that right time, if I hadn't let that person down. And I just think, all your life experiences are excellent. You can learn from the excellent times. You can learn from the poor times. You can learn from the mediumly hard times. You can learn from every time. So it's just like, just let go of insecurity, let go about what people think, and just be the absolute best version of yourself. Be the absolute best version of yourself and run the sickest company, the one that you were always born to do. And don't worry about what other people think. In fact, when I say don't worry about what other people think, I mean, you should worry about what your really close friends think. And you should have like a close, like, knit people that are on the same journey as you, that are championing you, that are supporting you, that are encouraging you to be better. But growing up, like, I'm almost 40, growing up, it was almost like tall poppy syndrome. Like, let's cut everyone's knees off that look like they're kind of trying to start to walk. And I just want to encourage everyone, like, if that's you, get around some awesome people, get around some awesome friends, and just champion each other to be the absolute best. But definitely let go of security. Also, let go of your ego. This is the big thing too, ego. It's amazing how much ego and insecurity play a part in your business journey. You got to let go of both, right? It's always going to be a little bit difficult, and you're going to go on journeys. And I would encourage everyone, like, a lot of journeys you go on are kind of like car parks. Like, you feel like you're going around in circles. I feel like I've been through this before. And to an extent, you might have, but you're going from the red level to the blue level to the black level. So you hopefully, as you go through, you're getting a little bit better every single time. You're going from the itchy lot to the scratchy lot, my Simpsons people out there. So let go of ego. You can learn something from everybody. You have to be able to talk to everybody on their level. I feel like if you have to have time for everyone, you have to be like, understand people's experiences, understand that where people came from, understand their background, understand their future, understand where they're at. Just love people for who they are, but definitely let go of your ego, because there is something to learn from everybody, and you don't always know what's right, and you don't always know the right thing to do, and you need help around you. You need some good people, and no one likes arrogance, pretty much. All right. So let go of insecurity and let go of ego. Those things will ruin and cripple your business more than you would hope. So I hope that spoke to someone. Lesson 2, this is a huge one. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't worry about it. Just channel your inner Frozen and let it go. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't worry about it. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't worry about it. So what isn't going to matter in 5 years? It's not going to matter all the small stuff, pretty much. What is going to matter in 5 years? Sort of your family and your children and your integrity and your reputation, and your sort of like your trajectory in life, and your growth as a human, like being there for your kids, like all that kind of stuff is going to matter. And this is going to help you absolutely immensely in resolving conflict, right? So any conflict that comes into your life, whether an apprentice was 15 minutes late, or you lost $500 on that job, or like $20,000 on that job, or you went here, or you did that, or you're a bit late to that job, or you're scared to text Betty because you're running half an hour late to Betty's house, and you're like, oh, just Betty, and you're walking past that job, and there's a PowerPoint hanging off the wall. You're like, I got no time for this stuff. I got to get to Betty's house. I've told Betty I'm late, Betty. It's like, you just got to own it, and just like, if it's not going to matter in 5 years, don't worry about it. Just be like, hey, Betty, I'm running 20 minutes late. See you soon. Hey, Betty, can't get there today. I'll get there tomorrow. All good. You've got to just basically, if it's not going to matter, just like water off a duck's back. Let it go. Yes, confront it. I'm not saying don't confront it, but I'm saying don't hold on to the small stuff. Don't hold on to the stuff that's not going to matter in 5 years. Hold on to stuff like truth, integrity, honesty, and like, you want to be able to hold your head up like high in 5 years time, in 10 years time, in 20 years time, and look back at a business that you created and be proud of it. That's what you want. So it's like, what I'm trying to say is, don't sweat the small stuff. If it's not going to matter in 5 years, just really try and let it go. All right, point number 3. Okay, here we go. This is huge if you can grab it. Staff are people too. You should almost call this like, staff and clients are people too. Staff and clients are people too. Now get this, right? You've got a business. So when you've got a business, you are doing what? You're working for clients, and you've got staff working for you. So it's like, and you've got to remember, your clients are people too, and your staff are people too. So often it's just so easy to get into the zone of like, yeah, like, oh, that's like, they're just so it's sometimes so easy to be like aggressive and frustrated and angry, and whether it's the clients or the staff, whatever. And just remember, like, when someone questions that invoice, doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person. When someone says, oh, do you reckon you can do it for $100 cheaper? It doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person. It might be to do with their cultural upbringing, and that's just, they've learned like, hey, if you don't ask, you don't get. Or it might be their parents are always like hassling or scratching for a better deal across everything. Like, you just don't know. But so I think just treat every single person like people. Treat them with grace, treat them with kindness, treat them how you would like to be treated, and your business will go a long way. And when you recognize that people are people too, sounds funny to say, that staff are people too, you will start to treat them how you would like to be treated. When you realize your clients are people too, and you're sending your invoices and you're like, far out, is Barry expecting that like $4,000 bill? I thought he might be expecting a $2,500 bill. Let me just call Barry, because I want him to be able to understand my side of the story. When you humanize everything, we can basically go a long way. Now, I want to share a little story. One of my good mates called me the other day and having some problems with a staff member. And I'm talking about like a decent sized problem, one where the staff member was kind of aggressive at a major client through text messages. And let's just face it, like, anything through a text message or email is greatly exaggerated because there's no tone. There's just so cold-blooded. Dave Chappelle fans, run at me, right? So it's so anyway, had this situation, and he called me and he's like, I'm gonna let this guy go, just gonna let him go, I'm gonna let him go. And I was like, look, cool, get it, totally get it. This is genuinely a bad situation, but like, why don't you sit down with the staff member and just ask if he's okay. Just ask if everything's okay in his world at that point in time. I just mentioned, because I was lucky enough or fortunate enough to know both of them, and I was like, it sounds a little bit out of character. Why don't you sit down and just ask, is everything okay? So they sat down for a coffee or beer or mocha latte or mocha frappuccino, Zoolander fans out there, whatever. And they just went like, hey, like, this is what happened. Just want to check if you're okay. And the guy on the other end of the conversation basically went like, no, I'm seeing someone for this, and I'm really anxious, and I'm struggling with depression at the moment. And it's like, okay, like, we've got some context. We've humanized the situation. Like, we're recognizing, no, what happened wasn't okay. Of course, that's not okay. But now we have some sort of context to why it's going on, and now we can start to begin to repair the relationship, right? You've got to be slow to fire, I think. You can't just fire everyone on a whim. You can't just put everything in writing and just rip and tear into your staff members. Your staff members like can't basically like can't be treading on eggshells around you. You treat them like people, treat them like, you know, your family, because that's what we want, right? I think if you ask yourself the question, you want, like, what kind of business do you want to run? Most of us would say a family style business where we all get along and we have beers after work, we have coffees in the morning, and we surf together and we break bread together and we get along. Like, and just that's probably what you want. You want to establish that kind of culture. So, like, to get there, we have to humanize them. We have to treat them like people too. So, anyway, to finish the story, the resolve of this situation was basically, all right, let's help you work through it. What do you need? So we worked with him to basically, you know, get the help he needed. Of course, that's first and foremost, and also maybe scale back the hours for 1 day a week just to get his feet back up. And a big part of the healing journey was that he would be able to, the staff member would call the client and apologize and just be like, hey, look, I'm sorry, I'm going through something. It's not okay what happened, because just to flag this is going a bit sideways, but the client who was being treated aggressively, he's also got things going on. He's got family, he's got a business to run, he's got clients that are barking at him, he's got his own personal demons he's facing. Like, everyone's got stuff going on. Just how you've got stuff going on, everyone else has stuff going on. It's nice to remember that. So he called him, apologized, but the client, had said, hey, I don't want to see this guy at my jobs anymore. So, like, anytime you hear that, you guys know as well as I do, you're in the service-based industry, right? When you're in the service-based industry, you kind of have no say on who's going where at what times. To an extent, yes, 100% understand you do. But sometimes if you got that emergency call out on a Sunday and only Billy or only Susie's willing to go out there, you might have no choice. So chances are in your service-based business that this staff member is going to be in front of this client at some point in the future. Tradies get sick and apprentices have to move around. Tradies get sick and other tradies have to fill in jobs. Things have to happen. And sometimes the schedule, as much as the schedule is in your control, it's also very much outside your control as well. And there's certain things that you can't foresee, and there's certain things that you can't predict, and there's certain things you just got to roll with the punches, right? So it's like, that's really important. If that ever happens to you, that's like a ding, 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 red flag. Let's confront this. Let's humanize this. Let's get in front of this. Let's recognize, okay, the client's a person now. They're feeling like our product sucks, and the product is your staff. Let's face it. So, like, you know, when we're saying staff are people too, like, you only have a business because you have staff, and you only have work because you have clients, and they're all people. So it's like, recognize and confront things where you need to. Also, some things just have to be nipped in the butt straight away. Big client issues, 100%. Just get in front of them. I think in front of them is the best case scenario. On, like, Zoomies, the next best. Phone calls, the next best. Text message, maybe the text message should say, like, hey, can you please give me a call? Anything aggressive in a text message or email is just not okay. Like, try and confront it in a human way, but try and nip this in the butt ASAP. Situation last week where one of our members had a staff member who was getting poached, I guess you would say, not like an egg. Maybe he would have preferred a poached egg than going to his rival company, going across to another company for an interview. And he was like, oh, yeah, we'll just catch up with him after the interview. This is what the boss said. And I was like, no, CC, no English yet, right? I was like, no, you get in front of this guy, like, now. You tell him, like, this guy was a little bit underpaid, in my opinion. And I was like, get in front of him now. We give him a pay rise, and we try and get him to stay, because this guy was an absolute gun, an absolute weapon. And if you've got those guns or weapons in your staff, you'll understand they're not everywhere, right? They're not queuing up around the corner to come and work for your company. So it's really important that we understand we've got to do everything we can to try and keep them. That's where quarterly performance reviews come into it. That's where kindness comes into it. That's when you can't just be around every corner going, we've got 3 days to rough this in, man. Let's get it out. Get your pouch on. 15-minute lunch break. Let's go. Need some OT. Need some Saturday. Like, that's why you can't always be underquoting jobs and can't always be throwing so much pressure on your staff members, because there's only so much pressure a staff member can take before they crack and before they crash and before they're at a barbecue and they realize that their friends getting paid more than them, and they're better than their friend, and they're like, oh, I'm on this, and their friend's like, oh yeah, I'm on this, yeah, you got to come work for Jono. Jono's a freaking legend. And before you know it, all your staff members are going to Jono. And if you look back, if you look deep within, if you look at yourself, if you look at your journey, if you look at your decisions, you recognize that your staff member was underpaid, underappreciated, and put too much pressure on him or her, and you kind of caused it. So it's like, whatever you do, stop, collaborate, and listen, as Vanilla Ice likes to say. Listen to your staff members, watch out for your staff members, look after your staff members, appreciate your staff members, send them a nice text message, because they are people too, and they are the only reason that you have a business, is that you have staff. And in a world, in a current climate, in a currency where staff are quite hard to find, let's look after what we've got in our hand. So that's 3 lessons from me. Coming up next will be lesson 4, 5, and 6. Thanks for hanging out. We are Sparky Coach. See you soon.